extension talk about a potential extension to extension talk about one that just happened with Daily Thunder's Royce Young.
I like my person of
How
interest
you
there. That's
doing,
pretty
Royce?
good. I'm pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. Well, let's start. You must be pretty happy that this extension is done, that Westbrook and Durant are locked in together for a while. Are you surprised at all by the level of scrutiny that this has gotten?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit strange. It's funny to me that people actually were curious whether or not Oklahoma City should extend Russell Westbrook. I mean, that's always kind of blown my mind that people have talked about, like, is it really in Oklahoma City's best interest to give Russell Westbrook an extension? I mean, you're talking about a 23-year-old point guard that has been part of a team that's won 50 games the past 2 seasons, went to the Western Conference Finals, made All-NBA, was an All-Star, averaged 20 points. I mean, it's just – he had a season last year comparable to Derrick Rose, who won the MVP. I'm not saying Russell Westbrook's as good as Derrick Rose, but it was at least on par with that. And for people to really wonder if Oklahoma City if it's a good decision to keep Russell Westbrook part of this team long term, it's kind of a stupid thing for people to wonder, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think the relationship between Westbrook and Durant may be driving some of that, right? Like, if you got that production from someone who kind of almost showed fealty to Durant on the court, they may say, okay, this is a no-brainer. Not only is he great, but he seems like such a great fit with Durant. My take on them from very far, having never seen them interact off the court, is with the reports that they are buddies, is that they seem, when they have squabbles, they seem to have the kind of squabbles that friends have. Not that people who don't like you, like, it's not about antipathy. It's about, not only am I frustrated, but I'm frustrated with someone that I really like and care about, and that kind of makes it look a little more dramatic, perhaps.
That's something that I've heard other people say, is that when a marriage goes bad, it's not because they're communicating, it's because they stopped communicating. So I almost feel like if Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant were giving each other the cold shoulder all the time, if it was too awkward for Durant to tell Russell Westbrook to calm down because he's yelling at Thabo Sefolosha, then I think that would be a worse sign than the fact that they feel that they have an open enough relationship that KD can put a hand on Russell's shoulder and say, hey, man, shut up, or something, And so I think if they didn't feel that way with each other, then you'd have something to wonder about. But, I mean, they yell at each other. I mean, I saw them yell at each other in a practice one time. But the same thing, it's just there's more of a spotlight on them. Scott Brooks said it really well, that they were yelling at each other like this, or even more so 3 years ago, but just nobody cared because the team wasn't any good. So, yeah. I mean, it's a fun story. People like to pay attention to this type of stuff, but within the team, they view it as absolutely no problem.
But a real basketball problem right now is the turnovers and the giving up, the Thunder giving up a large amount of offensive rebounds. The turnovers are usually, they point to the point guard immediately. Point guard and coach are the ones who get the blame for turnovers. Is that fair in this instance? Where are these turnovers coming from, and what do you think they can do to reduce them?
Turnovers have been an issue with Oklahoma City this team for quite a while. Ironically, in the game against the Wizards last night, it was Kevin Durant who had 7 turnovers. Russell Westbrook, I think, only had 3. And, it's a product of the offense in some ways. Scott Brooks encourages them to play loose and a little bit free. And he was actually asked one time whether or not, you just kind of teach yourself to deal with the turnovers, because to get good stuff, you got to play like that. And he kind of just agreed, kind of like, well, I mean, I don't want to turn the ball over, but if that's what it takes for us to play good offense at times, then that's what it takes. But it is a concern when you give up 21 turnovers and 19 offensive rebounds, which essentially equates to 40 extra possessions to a team, which is what happened to the Wizards and the reason that the Thunder lost, despite holding them to 38% shooting. So, I mean, you can't just ignore an issue like that. I mean, it's a problem, but you just got to hope that it's something that gets corrected.
So when you say that it's a product of the offense, do you mean that it's a product of just being so aggressive and trying to kind of bludgeon the paint?
Yeah, I think that's bludgeon the paint is probably the best way to put it. But I mean, they want to run in transition. I don't know. I mean, this is totally a made-up stat on my behalf, but I mean, I bet 20% of the turnovers Oklahoma City has come as a result of charges, whether it's Russell Westbrook, Durant, or Harden, somebody going hard at the basket and somebody sliding in to take a charge. I mean, Durant, I think, had 3 charges last night against the Wizards. So, that's just kind of part of it. You don't want to see 21 turnovers, but, if the Thunder turns it over, 14 to 17 times, they can live with that. But once you start like really, really throwing it away, that's when things get bad.
Right, and I guess looking forward to the playoffs, again, this was how you beat the Thunder last year, was you cut off the paint,
right,
and you force them into jump shots and turnovers. Do you think that the way that the offense is diversified with James Harden being on the ball more, do you think that that's a big enough difference to maybe not change the way you beat Oklahoma City, but make it more difficult to do those things?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a third option, it's going to diversify the offense enough to where, you don't just sit there and say, okay, they're going to run, side screen and roll with Westbrook and Durant here, and we don't really have to worry about anything other than maybe, Thabo Sefolosha, who's a pretty crappy shooter, standing over there in the corner. I mean, so you put in that third option to where now Westbrook has a bailout ability to give it to Harden, and he can run pick and roll with Ibaka or Collison. You put the ball in Harden's hands, and whether we like it or not, he's a much better creator and distributor than Russell Westbrook is. That's just the way it is. But you add a third option, and not just any third option, but a third option that's able to do 3 things: create, shoot, and attack the paint and score. You're going to have a better offense by default. So Harden may be. I mean, it's one of those things where you talk in hyperbole, and it probably is a stupid thing for me to say, but Harden may be the most important part of the Thunder's offense, which is one of the top 2 or 3 in the NBA.